My name is Katie. I'm your today's host for SAB, Subtle Asian Voices, and I have here my guest, Christine Lee.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Christine. I'm based in LA now. I'm from San Francisco, Bay Area. And yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Awesome. Yeah, so Christine is an actress based in LA right now. And more recently, I learned that she's a circus performer. But today we're going to talk more about the entertainment industry and any fun facts with all her creative gigs. So Christine, I know you're in entertainment right now, but what were you doing prior to that?
Yeah, it's a long answer, so I'll try to keep it somewhat brief. But I used to actually work in corporate. So I used to work at Microsoft and Google and all the big companies and startups. But I, at that point, was doing for fun circus on the side, like a hobby. And then at some point, I went somewhere, got picked up by a circus troupe, quit my job in tech, ran away, joined the circus, performed for years and years. I've now been performing like 15 years and about like 4 or 5 years ago, maybe a little longer, someone had tagged me on Facebook with like, "Hey, can someone do a backflip off a car?" And I was like, "Yeah, no problem. Like, sure, yeah." And I like responded like, "Sure, I could do that." Or someone tagged me on it, so I show up, and it turns out that it's a National Honda commercial. So I'm like, oh, this is like acting. I'm like, all right. So I ended up doing like a toe touch thing and like an '80s outfit, but it was so much fun. And when I was there, I met a bunch of actors who were like, "Hey, like, who's your agent? What are you doing?" I'm like, "Yo, like, I'm not an actor, like, circus performer," but they were like, "You should do this. Like, you don't just have to be an acrobat. Like, you could be a mom or a daughter or a friend or whatever." I'm like, "Okay, cool." So somebody there was like, "This is my agent. You should talk to them." So I then got signed, and then it was kind of like onwards from then. Then I did commercials and print work, and then got into doing more narrative and theatrical stuff after that.
Oh, that's so awesome. Thanks for sharing. I know like all these entertainment stories happen in the coolest way, myself included, but can you break down what is the difference between narrative, commercial, and I think, did you do one more?
And print.
Narrative, commercial,
Yeah,
and print. Okay.
totally.
Feel free to share that with the audience here.
I know it's kind of like we talk in code. I guess any industry it's like that, but for most like agencies, there's kind of three main categories. Print would be things like magazine or digital or billboards, like usually it's more modeling, like traditional modeling, and then there's commercial, which is basically commercials and ads, whether it's digital or TV or anything in between. And then the last would be some agents call it theatrical, some call it narrative, some call it just TV and film, but that kind of is all grouped together as anything that's TV and film.
Awesome. That's so cool. Okay, I know we shared that you came from a circus background as a circus performer, but besides the creative aspect, what do you enjoy as your hobbies?
With my hobbies,
Yes.
I feel like my whole life is a hobby, which is great because
Oh, that's awesome.
fun. Like circus, even though it's my job, it is my hobby. I love it. I perform, I teach, I do everything circus. So like flying trapeze, aerial, contortion, acrobatics. So like even doing like a little bit of a different thing there for me is a hobby. So there's that. And then anything fitness, I also teach like HIIT classes and group fitness. So I personally like doing that. And I've rock climbed a lot and snowboarded. So I just love active things. And then something that's really important to me is volunteering. So pretty much for my whole life, I make sure that one day a week I dedicate to giving back in some way, whether it's with an organization or if it's teaching circus to kids with disabilities or whatever it might be. But that's something that's really important to me.
Oh, awesome. That's so cool. Since I did meet you on one of our Facebook groups, um, can you share maybe like a breakdown of because I have a sense you're a multi hyphenate, so multi talented. Can you like do like a breakdown like, hey, I do like 33% acting, 33% circus, 33% teaching, or how's that look like in your life?
Oh my gosh, that is such a funny question because COVID has changed everything.
Oh,
Um,
yeah, absolutely that too.
So before quarantine, I would say like let's just say 2 years ago, so we have a specific
Mhm.
benchmark. I would say performing circus was about 50%. uh, teaching circus was about 25%, and then commercial acting at that point was 25%.
Mhm.
Then quarantine happened, and that's when I was like, oh my gosh, circus work is done. Like all my contracts got canceled, and
Mhm.
I literally had no income. And I'm like, what am I going to do? So I temporarily, at that point, left San Francisco because that's where all my circus work and community has been, to go to LA because I could then stay at my mom's and save some money as an adult, living at my mom's for now. But I did that so I could come to LA and kind of figure it out, right? Like stay on the creative path. And what happened, which wasn't even my plan, was I like tripled down on acting stuff, and not just commercial acting, but actual acting, like working on films, like roles with lines, different ranges of roles. And I just fell in love with it. And to be totally honest, I was afraid to do it before. Like line memorization was really hard for me. So I just thought it wasn't for me. Like I was never cut out to do that. And I was never an actor who was like a kid saying like, I want to be an actor when I grow up. Like I actually didn't. Like it was never a dream. I always wanted to be a performer. But somehow during quarantine, like this all changed where I started working with coaches and teachers and taking classes on acting. And like any skill, right? Like circus, you can't just learn from a YouTube video. I mean, you can learn lots of things from YouTube videos, but circus skills I couldn't. But with acting, I was like, line memorization is a skill. Like it just takes work.
Mhm.
Acting, right? It's a skill. It takes work and practice. So once I started dedicating myself to that, I learned so much and I've loved it. So now I would say my percentage is like 75% acting, like
Wow.
20% teaching, 5% performing, because there's also no shows. So circus isn't busy regardless, but it's a huge shift. So yeah, in the last year since quarantine, like quarantine has completely shifted my career path, but I'm very excited about all these new paths that I'm now exploring.
Awesome. That's so cool. I always like hear about these quarantine stories where if they didn't even have their job, like what really matters, what really sparks some joy, like what can we do with what we have and the time that we have too. So that's awesome that even it like caught you by surprise and now you're
Totally.
having so much fun and you're killing it. I mean, I checked out your recent film. I know we are jumping ahead of the conversation, but that's awesome. And that's how I found you, discovered you. So very cool. Okay, so that kind of answered like, oh, what made you wanted to enter this profession? So it was total like the scenario and situation. So super cool. My next question is, yeah, what did you specifically do to get into the profession? Basically, you like met someone on set, or how did that, if you don't mind sharing, like specifically came
Totally.
about where you're like, hey, all right, acting, here we go.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's why like a network is so important, right? So like even with what you guys are doing, like this is all so important. Like this is how people grow and make connections. And I was tagged on a Facebook post, right? Somebody, I can't even remember. I wish I could go look back in time, but somebody was like, "Hey, Christine, can you do this?" And then I go, right. And that was the day where I met all these people and learned so much about this world. And then from there, it was kind of like, then the agent, and then they pushed me forward. And I've also just had a lot of mentors in my life that have kind of pushed me in different directions. And there's one in particular, his name is Scott Cameron, and he's actually been my circus boss for now 11 years. So he was like the head of the circus school in San Francisco, and he ran an agency, and he hired me for a bunch of things. But he was always telling me, he's like, gotta do something else. Like, and I think you should go into acting. Like, I really think that the
Oh,
sky's the limit there. And I was like, I don't know. But he like really encouraged
we
me. I
saw something.
he did book me for my first like modeling gig, which was to be
Mhm.
a game character in a Zynga game. This was in 2011, I think. So a long time ago. I was in like,
Wow, 10 years.
yeah, it was 10 years ago. And he introduced me to somebody who's actually still a friend of mine, and I'm still close to his wife. But they booked me to be like a character in a game. And that was like my first like modeling gig. And I was still like, man,
Mhm.
I don't know. But like
So
it was
like
probably,
commercial or print
it was
or
just in a game. I was a game character, like in an actual game that you play.
oh, wow, that's so cool. I don't hear that often if it's like a real-time movement or if they like make it like a game.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
like,
Yeah,
I literally had like Street Fighter come up in my head. Awesome. That's so cool. Okay. Yeah, my next question is, can you describe your job responsibility on a day to day? I know it's so different right now, but and you said 75% acting, 25% teaching. Um, and today you had two potential auditions. So our chat here was like, um, according if you got the role or not. And I know every day is different in that world. But maybe do you mind sharing like what a typical day maybe looks like?
Totally. Well, you prefaced it perfectly because there is no typical day.
Right.
But I could give you like a typical couple days, and I think that'll represent it all. I would say I'm always auditioning, like as an actor or anyone in the creative world. Hearing no is normal and it's part of growth and it's part of getting feedback and it's just part of the process. So I audition, I don't know, 3 to 5 times a day. Like
Wow. And are these like in person or virtual now?
video, virtual submissions, Zoom. I mean, it's everything. But yeah, I audition a ton. And then in terms of work, so as an actor, that could mean a lot of things, right? Like that could just be TV or film or commercials, whatever, right? But there's a bunch of other things like hosting, right? Or being a
Mm.
reporter, or now there's a lot of like digital roles, like hosts on podcasts and things. So there's a bunch. So I do kind of across the board. So like one of the things I do is I host games on a bingo game. So I like get on a screen and call
Oh.
bingo numbers and interact with the guests. So and the players. So that's like usually like 3 times a week I do that. And then I also do
Oh,
reporting.
wow.
So I do like entertainment like beat reporting, so I do that about once or twice a week, and then usually I'll do like 2 to 3 commercials a week, just depending on what they are, and they could be anything. And again, being an actor is super interesting because you could be anyone. So one day I could be like a
Mhm.
40-year-old CEO, and the next day I could be a 16-year-old granddaughter, and then the next day I could be an assassin. So it's
Oh,
like
wow.
really fun, like lots of different roles. And then I would say things like films and yeah, like movies and films, those kind of come and go. And usually when a big role comes, I kind of drop everything else and prioritize that.
Right, during
Um,
the set times that they wanna try to shoot everything in. That's
for-
really cool, and then kinda after when they shoot it, you just kinda let them post-production before they get back to you saying like, "Hey, the film is finally done," right? Or something like that? Okay,
yeah.
that's how it is in the Midwest here from my very lesser experience of the entertainment industry. But very cool. Thanks for sharing. Yeah, my next question, I don't know if this is uh jumped around, but conflict and resolution. I wanted to since this channel do gauge to Asian American education in all fields. This particular episode is under the career and development segment. How did your parents feel about getting into this industry? I know, like, you know how Asian families are, they always have this vision and they're not um, really exposed to other industries. But here, us are doing our part in creating change. So just curious, how did your parents feel about it, even though we're like adults here?
Um, so out of all the questions I thought you were going to ask me, I knew this one would be the most challenging. My family is very traditional Korean. They live in Seoul. And they were very happy when I worked at Microsoft and at Google. And they were very happy when I was taking like a very stable corporate path. But they knew from when I was a kid, there's something up with me because I wanted to be a gymnast and I was in pre-Olympics, and they were like, you have to focus on school. So I stopped doing gymnastics. And then I was like, okay, I'm going to be a cheerleader. And then I became a competitive cheerleader. They're like, you can't go to college for cheerleading, even though I got all these scholarships. They're like, no, you're going to Berkeley because
Oh
that's
no.
academics. I'm like, all right, all right. So every time they've been like, no, focus on school. I've, kind of strayed, but I'm grateful for that because I've learned a ton. I've learned how to save money. I've learned how to make money. I've learned how to sell, right? I've learned the business side of things. So I'm grateful. But the irony is they kind of knew that I always had this itch in me to do something creative. So
Mhm.
kind of as I got older and then I left to go join the circus, they were like not happy, but they understood. They're like, this is our daughter.
Yeah, like, oh, we can't control it. It's just gonna happen.
Yeah. So
Oh,
it's
okay.
it is a continuing struggle, but I know that they know me and they know that I have always had a creative vision and heart. And they also know that I don't I don't like to consider like I kind of feel like I'm not 100% artist. I feel like I'm like
Mm,
75% artist, 25% like corporate person. Because even with
mm,
circus, like I love performing, but I also help run a circus troupe where I manage a lot of the
the
marketing,
behind the scenes.
a lot of the behind the scenes and the business side of things. So like in order to be successful as an actor or creative, like there has to be some business background, right? Or an ability to learn or to build. So yeah, like I think my parents know like hopefully their daughter will be okay, because there's always a way to make it work. There's always a way to at least turn it into a business or know how to negotiate contracts or stand up for
Mm.
myself. So I feel like the older I get, the more supportive hopefully they'll be.
Yeah, and they just want their kids to be happy and healthy, and when you're
Financially
on your
stable.
own, then like, hey, what
Yeah.
more can you complain? Um, yeah, similar story. I won't really go into it much, but yeah, it's been an interesting ride too over even in the Midwest because my family is also traditional Chinese. Mhm.
Yeah. I'm sure.
Yeah, so doing that corporate life plus entertainment on the side,
Yeah.
and naturally, I feel like creatives have to be like low key entrepreneurial. Like that's something that people don't really talk about. They only see the face, the end projects. And yes, the behind the scenes are cool, but there's stuff behind like, oh, like who's gonna record the behind the scenes or like the blog posts, it's just a lot of hyphens and a lot of hats to being a creative person. But
Totally.
it's always like fun. Like we can't like run away from it. I feel like it's just we gotta go keep doing that. But
Agreed.
awesome. Yeah. Okay. My next question is: tell us about a time in your career that you struggle with the most, and perhaps may have wanted to quit, or how'd you overcome it? I feel
Hmm.
like we're not because we're still here, but feel free to share that if anything pops up in mind.
Yeah, I mean, I think almost like the story that I told about how when COVID started, I was like, I have no job and I've spent my whole life like dedicating this to following my passion and financially making it work. And then suddenly it's over. So that was probably the biggest like career struggle for me where I'm like, do I go back to corporate? Do I just like sit on unemployment? Like, what do I do? But like, I like to work. So I'm like, I can't do that. Like, I need to work. So again, kind of shifting towards actually doing acting and films and building out my portfolio and building out my reel, like that was a big shift. So yeah, I would say if there's anything in my life that was like such a catalyst or such a challenge that turned into an opportunity, it was exactly a year ago.
Wow, yay, the 1 year mark. That's awesome. Yeah, I kind of had a similar thing too, even though I was doing entertainment on the side. Um, but surprisingly, COVID, they still work. I mean, we do our COVID tests prior to shoots. Everyone is in mask besides the model or the talent, or it's always like non-group work, or I simply just don't accept work where it's like more than like two people that are going to be shot. So I try to just do like the solo commercial or print work, but cool stuff. And it was a not bad year. I mean, I only got 2 years in my belt, but like, hey, it was still experience and happening during COVID. Mhm. Cool. Yeah, congrats. Keep pushing it. That's awesome. Yeah, I feel like entertainment always have these like struggles. The struggle is real.
Part
um,
of life.
yeah, especially in the West Coast too, because it's like really expensive to live there.
Expensive, competitive, everything. But there's
Gosh.
also so much more opportunity. So pros and cons.
Yes, a lot of people too, and you never know who you're gonna meet. Like your backflip gig.
Oh
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so now we're just gonna go. into how did you learn all of this? I mean, I guess you got coaches, you networked, um, the circus. Okay, let's talk about the circus. I know that isn't really the main focus of the episode, but that was a big part of what you do as a creative. And you said growing up, you always were in like circus performing, but how'd you get into that? Because I don't meet a lot of circus performers actually. I've gone to a couple of circus ticket shows, like, but they were touring the US and they happened to like perform in like Ohio. So I'm like, okay, let's check it out.
That's cool. So 15 years ago, I was living in New York. That's when I was working in Microsoft. I started taking classes at a school called Trapeze School of New York. And it started from me sitting in a taxi, because this is before there were Ubers. And I had a Razor phone, which you might be too young.
Yeah, no, that was actually my first phone. I had the pink one.
I was like, I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but you do. This was before like Blackberries or anything. And I remember sitting on the freeway. It was on the West Side Highway. So if anybody's watching here from New York, you know what I'm talking about. And I was a cheerleader in high school and a dancer in college. So I like missed performing and creative and something physical, right? So I was already like trying to take like dance classes and doing random things, but I just, my like cup wasn't filled. And I remember like being in the taxi and like looking out the window, and I saw this big sign that says like, come fly with us, Trapeze School of New York. And like there's a phone number, and I like grab my Razor and call, and I immediately book a class, and I show up that night. And I was one of those people who just fell in love so quickly that I came back like every day for like 2 years. I was so obsessed. And then and I just took a bunch of classes. And then about 2 years after doing that, our whole trapeze group of friends decided to go to the Caribbean on a trapeze trip, where we go on vacation and you do trapeze every day and there's shows and training. So I did that. And it was 1 week. And about halfway through the week, the head of the program there, the head of the troop, pulls me aside and was like, we want you to join our troop. And I'm like, huh? He's like, yeah, like we want you to be the fourth member of our flying trapeze group. And I was like, I live in New York. Like I work at Microsoft. Like I
And
don't
where were they? Were they New Yorkers too? New
no,
York.
no, they're all in the Caribbean. So we're on vacation in
Oh,
the Caribbean.
whoa. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
So
totally like
so
uh,
yeah, total
yeah.
shock. And I was like, like that's crazy. But by the end of the week, after I had performed all week and I trained all week, like I was in love with this place. And I eventually, left, went back to my office in New York, and I had an email in my inbox with a contract to be a part of the circus team in the Caribbean.
Oh,
And
you
I was like,
exchanged your email with them and stuff.
yeah. So I was like,
Okay.
all right, I'm just gonna do it. So I quit my job and moved to the Caribbean, performed abroad, traveled for 2 years. I worked in Southeast Asia, like all over the Caribbean. Like it was the best time, but I learned and trained so much there. Then I left, went to San Francisco, trained there. But back to the kind of how did I learn or train up acting? So circus and acting is actually very hand in hand, because it's theater, it's on stage, it's self-expression, it's emotion,
Okay.
right? So I learned a ton, not just from performing, like just like being on stage, but doing shows that were a little more kind of off the cuff. So for example, there's a troupe that I work for in the Bay Area called the Vespertine Circus. And they are one of the most unique troops. And I love them so much because they just take everything and they break it, right? Like they're like, okay, we
Oh,
want
that's what they're like known for or something with their
yeah,
okay.
like we're just like, okay, instead of having a circus show, let's make this like a zombie show. Let's make this something that's kind of like Book of Mormon-esque and challenging society, right? Or let's do a show, like they're basically constantly kind of breaking the mold and challenging society, and doing those acts and working with that circus and working with actually her name is Bunny. She runs the troupe. Working with her, she's given me so much feedback where she's like, stop smiling. Like you
Oh,
can't smile all the time, right? Like put some depth into it, right? Have some emotion, and like actually making me act while I perform. And I loved it, right? And I was like, oh my gosh, now I like performing, showing my heart versus just like a smile on the screen, right? Which is more
oh,
commercial acting, right? But
right. Yeah, I was about to say, hey, like commercial modeling, it's all about smiling and
Totally. So it totally works
relating
for the commercial
to everyday
side, but
people.
for the more theatrical and the more dramatic roles, like having that experience working with Bunny, working with the Vespertine Circus, like completely changed my outlook on how I actually feel the audience or communicate, what's happening deeper inside. So yeah, I think it's been hand in hand. And of course I've done like acting classes and training, but circus is where it all started. Yeah.
That's awesome. Very, very neat. Thanks for sharing. Okay, moving on to the next. Okay, so how we get into this, how we learn. Okay, so your new short film just came out, but what have you been up to? I think I saw you were teaching some classes here and there. Feel free to share.
Yeah. So yeah, there is the short film that I just did. I don't know if we're going to talk about that later, but it was such an amazing project. I got to be a schizophrenic assassin, which is such a fun role because
Mhm.
it is dark, it is twisted, and I mean, look at me, I'm like a smiley face, right? But in the movie
Right.
pretty scary, but I love it. I love that role. I have another film coming up in 2 weeks, and for that, I am a ditzy office girl, like
Oh, nice.
like a kid out of college who is trying to get a job and she keeps getting fired, and it's very much like the show The Office. So I'm kind of like
Mm.
a little aloof, which is a fun role as well. And yeah, I have a few other similar types of roles coming up. But otherwise, I kind of just do a little bit of everything. Yeah. Oh, I did one show that'll be coming out in a couple months. So yeah, it's been busy. I'm so grateful that Hollywood is opening back up. Everyone is still very COVID safe with masks on between sets, but yeah, I'm kind of all over the place right now.
Got it. All over like the LA place, correct? With the roles. Awesome. Cool. I can't wait to revisit LA again. Um Actually one of my co-podcaster teammates, or two of them, they're in the LA area. So uh, I mean they have their own corporate or healthcare jobs and then they mix it with like media because
Oh, nice, nice.
it's the thing right now.
When you visit, I'll show you around.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, I can't
This
wait.
is my little sister.
Yeah, totally. Especially like post-vaccination stuff, because
Yeah.
yeah, we'll have to feel it out. But awesome. Oh yeah, okay. Since we're talking about LA, I would love to ask you, how are you navigating LA since your move is fairly recent and in entertainment? Um, Feel free, whatever that question reson or made you think of, feel free to share. How do you navigate LA as a creative since every day is different? It could be like logistics, like transportation, traffic, friends, food. Have at it.
Yeah. The transition to LA, I'll admit, has been really hard. I've never lived here and I've been in the Bay consecutively for 10 years. So being anywhere for that long, going anywhere, leaving your friends, your family, your jobs, your circus troops, your circus family, it was really hard. But I don't know if I mentioned this earlier. I didn't intend to move to LA. Like I intended to just come here for like a
Mhm.
couple months during COVID and then COVID kept going. But during that time, like I started to get work. So really I try to, treat it the way that you would treat any new city. If you're starting fresh, which is I wanted to meet friends. So that was one part of it. I like posted on social media, got introduced to friends of friends. So that's going well. And then I also posted on social media asking, like, hey, I need an agent. Like, I need some representation out in LA. Does anyone have any recommendations? And I had like 10 different people introduce me to different agents. So I researched them. I auditioned a ton. I got signed by AVA, who's based in LA, and they're great. So AVA has been super helpful. But in addition to that, it's just like, it's being an entrepreneur, right? It's just figuring it out. So like going on Facebook groups, like finding out if there's acting groups in LA, right? Going on different casting sites and signing up for all those. And like literally just asking shamelessly for help. Like, and people,
Mhm.
if they care, they help. Like I've posted on social media, like, hey, who needs a circus performer? And somebody responds, usually somebody's like, oh, my company's doing a virtual thing. Do you want to be a part of it? I'm like, yes, like this is how the work
Mm,
works, is like a lot of that is through social media and networking. But
mhm.
yeah, it has been a challenge. Like the very beginning felt very lonely and very hard. I really missed my friends and my circus
Mhm.
community and my job, but like month by month, it just got better and better. Now it's almost been a year. It's been, yeah,
Oh,
almost a
yeah,
year.
over
Hey,
a year now.
and now, like, now I love LA, and now LA is starting to feel like home, and I feel a lot better about navigating. But I mean, I'm just grateful for the people that have helped, right? My agent, my friends,
Mhm.
like people that I've done like one commercial with, who like lived in San Francisco and is now in LA and like helped me there. So yeah, I'm just grateful for
Mhm.
the network and then the people that really want to help each other succeed.
Yeah, oh, for sure. Oh my gosh. That's awesome that you found like a group like that because always get nervous like, hey, people are great networkers in LA. Like, you never know who you're going to meet. And I mean, that's part of entertainment. You gotta meet a lot of people to get gigs and referrals. So um, you just gotta know your people, your close knit, and then go from there. Yeah, cool. Awesome. And then, yep. Oh, I asked, how did you decide to move to LA? That was on accident, but it ended up staying. Awesome. And then why do you, okay, how about this? Since you guys, you do get casted for a lot of different roles, what do you believe about yourself that makes you successful getting booked? I know like looks have a lot to it, personality, the rapport, like can we work with her? But what do you think on your end as a talent? Like, oh, maybe I think I got this role because of yada yada yada. Or
I think it's because for me, I think it's because I did get started later. So whenever people are like, "Oh my gosh, I'm too old to be an actor," I'm always like, "No," like, or when circus people are like, "I'm too old to perform," I'm like, "No, like, absolutely not." Like, anyone can do anything, whatever age. It just depends on how you want to do it and how hard you want to work. So I think for me, it's because I have had so many lives. Like I've taken so many career
Mhm.
paths where I've worked in sales, I've worked in marketing, I've been a circus performer, I've worked in retail, I've gone through trauma, I've gone through so many different things that all these roles that I get casted for were at some point me. So it's not even acting, it's just being myself or putting myself in the shoes that I was in at that point. Like even this short film that I'm talking about, even though I was a psycho assassin, right? Like I have had fight training, right? I have done that from circus. I've had to roll around and get punched, right? So things like that, like I could easily translate. So yeah, I think a lot of why I feel like I've picked up steam and I'm so grateful for it is because I have been that character, right? Like the short film that I'm doing where I'm kind of like the ditzy new office girl. I'm like, I was that, at 21 when I was in New York doing my first day of work. Like I broke my heel walking to the office. I literally was that character.
Oh,
So
wow.
yeah, so I feel
Okay.
like a connection to pretty much all the roles that are posted. Yeah,
Yeah. Like, yep, this is her. And the skill part is um acting that part out and really get into character. That's awesome. Cool. I like that. Um, yeah, I noticed because again, like I didn't get into modeling until 2 years ago, and of course, like my peers get so surprised, like, "Oh my gosh, I thought you were so much younger." But because I had like the experience and I'm a little older, I'm more confident about myself, and then
totally,
going into these roles, it helps. And then, like what you said, like, "Oh, I was that um, version
totally.
this day and age," and then I'm able to perform, and that's really cool. And it's like natural. Um, yeah, even though I noticed more recently I get casted a lot for like student roles, and like I was a student or in
Exactly. You
college or
yeah,
mhm, or like yeah, or not like a speaking role, but there'll be non-speaking in the background or something.
totally.
Cool. Yeah. Next question. Feel free to share. What was your first um, commercial gig?
Oh, the backflip one. Yeah, the
Back
haunted.
with
Yeah, yeah,
uh, the car company? Sorry, which
Yeah,
one was that?
the Honda that where
Honda.
somebody posted on Facebook, like, can you do a backflip off a car? So yeah, that I was hired to be a cheerleader doing a little jump thing by a car for like an explosion moment. Yeah. So
Nice.
the Honda one. Yeah. So that's the whole thing that kicked off the whole, you know, this whole thing.
Got it. Explosive. That's awesome. Okay, very neat. And a little morph into another thing, but what are beauty tips that you swear by since we have to like be on screen a lot?
Beauty tips. Oh my gosh. If I could go back in time and be your age, I would have done a lot more face products.
Face products? Oh, like
Oh my
business notice.
I wish that I moisturize better and use anti-aging stuff so much earlier because once you start aging, you
You
don't
look great.
apply to a ton of stuff. So I would say like face masks and facials, like I have to now, like in order to like look clean and young on camera. And even if I don't have to look young, like yeah, beauty tips, very important. Like I have to write the stuff off on my taxes now because I'm like, okay, I have to make sure that I look okay. So yes, and rest,
Wow.
lots of water, workout, yes, all the things.
Workout
Yeah,
and facials, skincare, eye cream.
very good. Yes, lots of eye cream. This is the
Got it.
Korean in me. This is the like soul, like family based
Mhm.
soul family Korean in me. Yeah, I'm all about all the face products.
Got it. Yeah, I do enjoy Korean products. Actually, my sister like introduced them to me um, in high school. I've not really kept up with it, but sometimes if I like one, I'll keep up with it. Like more recently, there's a Shiseido sunscreen that I like to use, and it's Korean. Um, but the brand is Shiseido, but it has Korean words on it. Michelle Phan, the fellow YouTuber, she recommended it, so I'm like, all right, I'm trying it. But okay, cool. Yeah, yeah, I need to do better at incorporating facials in my life. Oh, do you recommend like the day before or 2 days before your gigs, or like
I
how
do a
do you
mask every
schedule
night
that?
before I'm on camera. Anytime I have like an on-screen day, the night before I use a
Mhm.
face mask.
Okay, got it. And then okay, yeah, tell me about one of your role models and how they inspired you. And who was this role model, even if it was as a child, and or like who do you look up to, um,
Oh man.
or that keeps you going? And
So
I,
many people.
mm,
I actually haven't thought about this one. Mm.
I'll share your mind as you're thinking.
Yeah, go ahead and share your
Um, I talked about her. I really love Michelle Phan. Like she's the reason why I started YouTube and being a creative entrepreneur because she kind of like paved her own way. I mean, she was just like doing her passion, like makeup, making YouTube videos. So I was like, oh well, I like music. So originally I did like music covers, piano and guitar, and then but that was like for fun. And now I'm morphed into more lifestyle, or like I want to do my version of giving back, which is like these educational videos. So yeah, I look up a lot to her as like a creative entrepreneur, being in that field. And feel
Yeah.
free to share like family members too. It's just no one in my family is like super creative.
And I like there's so many people because I would say it's really anybody who follows their passion and is a creative and in the bigger scale things give back, right? So like I like love Taylor Swift, right? I love that she's so charitable and she speaks her mind and speaks up on women's rights and politics. Love the Dixie Chicks, same thing. So like I have like kind of bigger picture role models and then personally in terms of like whose career path would I want to follow, I would say Aquafina because she is the newer actor, right? But I mean, she's a musician, right? She started doing as a rapper, and like I started as a circus performer, so I'm like, oh, like she made this
Yeah.
transition. She's killing it, and she has so much range. She's such an amazing actor. She's hilarious, and she also has like. If you've ever watched the movie The Farewell, like she's got that side, like she has so much range that I'm like, all right, like that is a person who like I want to follow and be
Mhm.
like and learn from. So yeah, I would say like in the bigger picture of things, like I look up to a lot of the creatives and the entertainers that have really made a big impact on the greater community, and then personally
Mhm.
kind of following the footsteps of people like Aquafina.
That's awesome. I hope you get to meet her one day.
I
Yeah,
hope so.
I think she's in LA. Ooh,
Hi.
yeah, Aquafina. That's what's up. Yeah, I found her out from the film Crazy Rich Asians, and I was hooked since. That's how a lot of people I feel like got to
Yeah,
know her
really her
as
big.
OG and listen to her old rap music. Um, but then I like found out she like was originally a rapper from the movie. I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Really creative stage name, unforgettable, and how she was so strong and just persisted and was really resilient, being entertainment. So really cool. Yes. Okay, this is another off-topic one, but what's your guilty like food?
Guilty
Your guilty pleasure, food wise.
So I, believe it or not, eat 1 spoon of ice cream every day. Literally
Wow.
in bed every day. I have 1 spoon.
Oh, do you like try different brands
No,
or?
I just eat the same thing. It's like a salted caramel thing, but it's just so delicious. So I like 3 years ago went on this like massive diet where
Mhm.
everything changed. Like I lost like 15 pounds, like 4% body fat. It's this whole program called the Green Door Lifestyle. And they taught me how to eat correctly and how to measure my macros. And that actually has been a big catalyst in going into like modeling and acting, because like I just feel better about my body, more confident, more in control. But
Mhm.
yeah, like one of those things is you obviously can't eat cookies and ice cream all the time, but if you eat just the right amount, then it's
Mhm.
actually okay. So I literally have like 1 spoon of ice cream every day. That is my guilty
Oh,
pleasure.
that's awesome. Hey, so for those of you guys listening out there, like you can still look amazing and eat ice cream.
You can
Full
eat
of
ice
it every day.
cream. You really can. That's the cool thing about this program, is that it's not like a diet. It's just like a way to balance out how you eat.
Yeah. Yeah, even for myself, I mean, I do commercial modeling, but I eat intuitively, like whatever feels right. And yeah, like today earlier, I had ramen. But it's all good. It's cool. And then my next modeling gig is actually this Saturday. So
Cool.
awesome. So
Awesome.
yeah, you can just be you and make it work.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, okay, we're gonna wrap up here. But do you have any advice for like people going into the space? Anything that pops up, it could be small or big.
I would say just don't be discouraged. I've met so many people that have done like 1 or 2 auditions and didn't get a call back, and they're like, I just wasn't meant to be. And I'm like, no, like I do 100 auditions, and sometimes I get 10 callbacks and sometimes I get none. So like just be resilient. There's a role for everyone, every shape and
Mhm.
size, every ethnicity. Somebody is going to be needed on some set for some commercial, for some movie. So like there is going to be work for everyone. It's just being resilient and like submitting, auditioning, hearing no, asking for feedback, growing, and like just get after it. And maybe this is because I have a sales background, that it's like I hear no and I'm like, okay, but like a lot of people, it really hurts them. And I'm like, no, like this is part of the process. So yes, just to be resilient, ask questions, get feedback, and know that hearing no doesn't mean you're not worth it. It just means that role and that timing didn't work out, but there will be something else.
Mm, I like that, and I totally want to echo that too, because you never know like what clients are looking for, and through these like changing times, like awesome that Asian representation is getting like incorporated more, and um, um, yeah, just making that change in the industry. Awesome. Yep.
And I have to
Okay.
say, this is kind of funny. We've clearly been here for a while because my room is dark now.
Right. I saw that, but I love the aesthetic of it
I
because
look like I'm
violet
like
is my favorite color.
I feel like I'm about to have like a karaoke party, but yeah, that's my sign, because I teach classes, like stretching classes. So it says stretch with Clee, but it's very bright and it's a little dark. So I'm sorry about that.
Oh, hey, no problem. I love it. And violet's my favorite color, so it's aesthetically pleasing. I enjoy it. Okay, and yeah, wrapping up. Okay, plugs, shout outs, or any promo or recent project that you've worked on. We talked about your skit. f- have at it.
Cool. Yeah. So personal, I guess, like promo, like I'm on Instagram. I'm Christine Lee Cirque. My stage name for Circus is actually Cirque du Clee, but I recently changed it to Christine Lee Cirque because it's easier for casting directors to find you. So that's one tip for everyone, is make sure your name, your Instagram name, if you're in entertainment, is something that always people will be able to find you or remember you by, because nobody
Mhm.
would find Cirque du Clee. Anyway, that's mine. And then
Wow.
Cirque Dahlias is the circus troupe that I'm one of the founding members for. We are a minority run group by women. We are 4 women of color running this group, and they're awesome. And we do corporate gigs and bookings. Stretchwithclee.com. That's my online stretching classes if anybody wants to come. My website is christineleecirque.com, and that's where you can see my real headshots and everything. So I get a lot of bookings through that. And then I think shout outs, I think that's it. Yeah, I think those are all the promos and things.
Awesome. Yeah, and anything that's linkable, I'll be sure to include them in the description box, guys. And yeah, we're gonna have a wrap up. But thanks, Christine, for being on this episode and um, having this way of giving back and educating those out here and myself too. I did learn quite a bit, especially since I'm in a little part of entertainment as well. But yeah, we're gonna sign off now, and you guys have a great day. Bye.
Bye.